I'm on 560 westbound, just past, I believe, the Buffalo exit, and I think there's a body on the side of the road.
To die of a death of that gruesome death, it was just gut-wrenching to see that. It's something that'll stick with me the rest of my life.
January 29, 2008 had begun as any other day for 21-year-old Latrice Curtis, a student at North Carolina Central University who had left home for school and would never be seen alive again. It wasn't until January 30th when her body was discovered on the highway on Interstate 540, badly damaged, covered in bruises and 40 stab wounds. Worst of all, lifeless. As police scrambled for answers, they uncovered a horrifying truth. The one behind it all was a well-known pastor. But what was even more shocking was the truth behind her murder. As investigators dug deeper into the crime, they uncovered a chilling plan. This is the life and death of Latrice Curtis.
It was your examination of Miss Curtis. What did you first note? Your just visual examination as a
The first thing that I remember noting would be we have a young black female, adult female. She is clothed. She had clothing on. The clothing was wet and also appeared to be soaked.
Latrice Curtis, born Latrice Matral Jones on May 28, 1986, grew up in a small town called Raleigh, North Carolina. Raised by her loving parents, Sherman and Cynthia, she had a bond with her older brothers, Justin and Marlon, that was unbreakable. But there was one relationship that stood out above the rest. Her connection with her father, Sherman. Latrice, affectionately known as Treese, was her father's constant companion, so much so that he would often joke calling her his little boy in a dress. She loved spending time with him, engaging in activities that traditionally associated with fathers and sons like fishing, playing basketball, and enjoying the outdoors. However, as Latrice entered high school, she began to blossom in ways her family had not anticipated. It wasn't just her looks that caught the attention of others. It was her infectious personality, her easy smile, and her ability to make friends effortlessly. She quickly became the center of attention, admired not only for her beauty, but for her kindness. But despite the admiration she received, she remained grounded. She was popular, yes, but she kept her priorities straight. Her education always came first. Her father, a dedicated juvenile corrections officer, couldn't have been prouder. It wasn't easy for a young woman with such charm to focus on school, yet Latrice did, excelling in her studies without letting the distractions of high school life sway her. Latrice's hard work in academics paid off when she was accepted into Bennett College in Raleigh. From there, she transferred to Wake Tech Community College and eventually enrolled at North Carolina Central University, where she majored in accounting. It was at NCCU that she crossed paths with someone who was about to take her life through an unexpected turn. 21-year-old Latrice met Darren Lee Curtis, a fellow accounting student and former National Guard soldier. Darren, who was 5 years her senior, hailed from Raleigh as well. He was soft-spoken, shy, and a bit reserved. Yet, despite their contrasting personalities, Latrice and Darren quickly formed a bond that seemed unbreakable. As their relationship grew, so did their love for one another. Both Latrice and Darren were driven, focused on their education and working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Their shared ambitions and dedication to their future together only deepened their connection. But what started as a quiet bond soon transformed into something more serious. Soon enough, the couple decided to get married. On April 27, 2007, Latrice officially became Mrs. Curtis. The wedding, however, didn't come without its own set of complications. Despite having introduced Darren to her family during their courtship, Latrice's decision to marry him in secret took everyone by surprise. The news of the wedding hit her family like a bombshell, especially her father, Sherman. He had never been informed about their plans and was left stunned by the sudden announcement.
The thing that wasn't respectful to me was that he never said anything to me about wanting to marry my daughter. I feel like he should have came and talked to me about it, but they never told me anything.
This secretive move raised many questions. Why had Latrice kept it from her loved ones? Why hadn't she confided in them before making such a life-changing decision? The wedding, once a symbol of her commitment to Darren, soon became a source of tension within her family. But what happened next would shake everything Latrice knew about love and loyalty. After their wedding, Latrice and Darren settled into a modest apartment in Raleigh, ready to begin a new chapter of their lives together. The future felt bright as they looked ahead, both hopeful and optimistic. They were serious about their commitment to one another, fully prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. They shared a common goal, building a stable life, one grounded in their love for each other and their shared career aspirations. Dedicated to their accounting studies, they both worked part-time jobs to make ends meet. Latrice found work in the Human Resources Department at Sears in the Triangle Town Center Mall, while Darren was employed at a local firm in Raleigh. Their days were filled with long hours, balancing work, school, and their budding life together. Yet, despite the hustle, they were content. They shared dreams of the future and spoke often of their plans for a family. But what seemed like a peaceful, promising future was about to be disrupted. Just 9 months after their marriage, tragedy would strike. It all began in January 2008 when Latrice, now in her senior year at university, found herself thinking more seriously about starting a family. She confided in a close friend about her growing desire to have a baby, but there was a catch. She wasn't sure Darren was ready. Fear that despite their deep connection, they weren't yet in sync on this important step. Little did Latrice know, this would prove to be a haunting glimpse of what was to come. In the evening of January 29, 2008, began like any other. Latrice finished her classes for the day and drove home around 8 p.m., followed shortly by Darren. Their routine was simple and comfortable, however, by the following morning, their world would be changed forever. On January 30th, 2008, a passerby driving along Interstate 540 noticed something strange, a body lying on the side of the road.
I'm on 560 westbound, just past, I believe, the Buffalo exit, and I think there's a body on the side of the road.
When authorities arrived at the scene, they discovered the lifeless body of 21-year-old Latrice Curtis, pale and covered in multiple stab wounds. It was clear that her death was both brutal and deliberate. Meanwhile, Latrice's father, Sherman, had been trying to reach his daughter all morning. When his calls went unanswered, a growing unease began to settle in his stomach. His worst fears were confirmed hours later when he heard about the body found on I-540. But it wasn't until much later that Sherman learned the horrific truth. The body was, indeed, his daughter's.
We got down there, it's probably about 11 o'clock. And they had us sitting in this room. They finally came out and told us that the girl's body that they found on 540 was identified as Latrice.
The news hit him like a crushing wave, leaving him numb and heartbroken. His daughter, the bright and promising young woman he had raised, was gone, taken in a way that no one could have ever anticipated. But no one knew the killer was someone far closer than anyone imagined. The authorities found several pieces of evidence at the scene, including a phone that had been discarded nearby and a white Nissan Sentra, believed to be Latrice's car. The car contained blood and damage that indicated an attack had taken place inside it. This discovery led investigators to an unsettling revelation. The investigation soon revealed that Latrice's husband, Darren, had called 911 to report her missing, claiming he had last spoken to her the previous night.
911, where's your emergency? I live in Raleigh, but my wife goes to school out at North Carolina Central, and she did not come home last night. I talked to her last night. She was on her way home. She was in the car and everything. She hadn't showed up.
The last known place she was at NCCU. Did you talk to her while she was driving?
Yes, she had the radio on and everything. She told me she was stopping to get something to eat. I don't know if she was still in Durham when she called me or she was on 540 coming back in Iraq.
Darren's story, however, raised suspicions. He claimed he had fallen asleep after their last phone conversation and only realized Latrice hadn't come home the next morning. His failure to actively search for her or even ask about her whereabouts seemed odd to the detectives. Despite these concerns, Darren cooperated with the authorities, providing fingerprints, DNA samples, and allowing searches of his apartment and car. Despite the lack of concrete evidence against Darren, the investigation soon uncovered a dark twist. At 1:30 a.m. on the night of the murder, Highway Patrol Trooper Isaac Cooper noticed something strange near the crime scene on I-540. A Chrysler Pacifica was parked with its hazard lights flashing. The driver's side window was partially down, and despite the intermittent rain, the door was unlocked, with the key still in the ignition, yet there was no sign of anyone nearby. The car was parked on the opposite side of the highway from where Latrice's body had been found. When the license plate was checked, it led investigators to a 43-year-old man named Robert Lee Adams Reeves, a former pastor at Cedar of Lebanon Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. Robert had founded the Cedar International Fellowship in Brooklyn in 2002 and served as its minister, adopting the title of bishop, a nickname he gave himself. Robert was well known and highly regarded in his community. Among his friends, he was considered energetic, intelligent, and diligent, a man of God who excelled in everything he did. Authorities quickly questioned Robert Reeves on January 30th, 2008, just hours after the murder. During the interrogation, Robert remained tight-lipped but eventually provided crucial information. When asked about his whereabouts and his car, he stated that the day before he had only gone to church and then returned home. But as the investigation continued, a shocking revelation came to light. The police learned that Robert had lent his car to Stephen Randolph, a fellow accounting student at NCCU. But not just that, Latrice was also having an affair with Stephen. Police collected Robert's DNA, fingerprints, and photos, just as they had with Darren. Robert had cuts on his hands and legs, which he claimed were from moving a desk, although this explanation raised suspicions. There was still no substantial evidence to link him to the murder, so he was let go. With a third person now involved, the investigation took a sharp turn. Stephen was soon questioned about his relationship with Latrice. While he admitted to the affair, he would downplay its significance. He claimed that Latrice had told him she was separated from her husband, though in reality, they were newlyweds. Despite the affair, Stephen maintained that he didn't know why Latrice had kept it a secret from everyone. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that there were multiple layers to the story. Darren, Robert, and Stephen all became suspects in the case, and authorities were determined to uncover the truth behind Latrice's tragic death. Stephen revealed that it was late in 2007 when he moved into Robert Reeves' house. A few days after settling in, he invited Latrice over for a study date. One thing led to another, and they ended up sleeping together. From that point forward, they occasionally engaged in intimate encounters. These sporadic encounters that became familiar routine would soon shift. On the evening of January 29, 2008, Latrice came to his place, and they ended up sleeping together again. After their encounter just before 10 p.m., she decided to go home. Following her departure, Stephen headed to the residence of his other girlfriend, Velma, and met with several friends. But then, an unexpected conversation would take place. Shortly afterward, he received a phone call from Latrice. She told Stephen that she might be pregnant and wanted to take their relationship further. He agreed to discuss it the next time they saw each other. Little did he know, this conversation would set off a chain of events that neither of them could have anticipated. Shortly after this phone conversation, he received another call from Latrice's phone. He answered, but no one said anything. Stephen stayed at Velma's house until around 1:30 a.m. before driving home and going to sleep. When he woke up the next morning for an early class, he noticed a call had come in from Latrice's phone around 2 a.m. Stephen also informed the police about another detail. He and Velma had been receiving strange phone calls. About a month before Latrice died, their tires were slashed. This incident led him to occasionally borrow Robert's car, though he emphasized that he hadn't taken it out for about 2 weeks, since his own car had been repaired. He also stated that he had nothing to do with Latrice's death. Just like the other two men, Stephen gave the police his fingerprints, DNA, and was photographed. Although he wasn't ruled out as a suspect just yet, he was let go. After Stephen's interrogation, the detectives were left with a bunch of new questions. Was Stephen being honest? Or was he spinning a tale? Could he be desperate enough to harm Latrice to protect his image, especially now that she was seeking a more serious relationship? Or did Darren catch wind of his wife's deception and decide to take matters into his own hands? What role might Robert have played in all of this? Unfortunately, these were all just speculations. To nail down solid evidence, the police had to bide their time for the lab test results. Meanwhile, as they tried to piece together a timeline for the murder, they stumbled upon another nugget of information. Kimberly Parker, one of Latrice's closest friends, also got an odd call from Latrice's cell phone at 2 a.m. on January 30th, 2008. She picked up the call and was met with eerie sounds of wind, footsteps, and passing cars. It sounded like it was close to the highway. This was odd since Latrice usually doesn't call late at night, so that was kind of strange to her. Concerned, Kimberly dialed back, but the call went straight to voicemail. Little did she know, the next time she heard Latrice's name, it would be in the worst possible context.
I was in my bed and my phone was ringing. Latrice usually doesn't call late at night. That was kind of strange to me. So I picked up the phone. I heard a lot of movement. I heard cars driving by. It sounded like it was close to the highway. Something inside me just told me to just remain on the phone. I was saying, Latrice, 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 until I hung up the phone.
The autopsy report revealed the gruesome details of Latrice's death, indicating that her throat had been slit and she'd suffered around 40 stab wounds to her face, head, neck, and torso. Additionally, she sustained a blunt force injury to her head, specifically behind her right ear. The disturbing nature of the injuries was heightened by the fact that they penetrated her carotid artery, jugular vein, and even severed her vocal cords. Her pant zipper was also found open, indicating she may have been taken advantage of. One of the wounds extended from one side of her neck to the other, suggesting an attempt to decapitate her. The reports also noted signs of violent struggle with damage to Latrice's fingernails. The estimated time of death was between 1 and 2 a.m., which meant that when Stephen received his final call from Latrice, followed by her call to Kimberly, she was already deceased. But why would the killer use Latrice's phone to contact her loved ones? Was it driven by sadistic pleasure, or was it an attempt to mislead the investigation? Regardless of the answer, the police didn't have to wait too long to apprehend the perpetrator. On February 2nd, 2008, Sherman had received a phone call informing him that an arrest had been made in his daughter's case. To the shock of many, the individual turned out to be Robert Reeves, who was accused of first-degree murder. Despite his protests of innocence, incriminating evidence was discovered, including his DNA found on the steering wheel and other items inside Latrice's car. The revelation was met with disbelief by those who knew Robert, particularly considering his standing as a bishop, a respected figure in the religious community. But why would a man with the least connection to Latrice kill her? The true motives behind Robert's actions didn't become clear until the trial began on September 29, 2009. The trial of Robert Reeves commenced at the Wake County Courthouse. The proceedings brought forth a wealth of information, particularly the testimony of Stephen Randolph, which exposed the dual life led by Robert Reeves. Stephen first met Robert in the spring of 2007 while he was working part-time at a car wash and struggling financially. Curious, Robert asked Stephen what he did for a living, and Stephen explained that he was trying to find a secure job. Robert, identifying himself as a clinical research associate, offered to assist Stephen in securing employment. They met multiple times at South Point Mall, where Robert floated the idea of Stephen living at his house. Stephen, without a stable living situation, accepted the offer and agreed to pay $300 per month. Robert's sister, Willie Mae Thorpe, also lived in the house with Robert and had a separate bedroom upstairs, while Stephen moved into the basement. Initially, Stephen thought his problems were sorted, but he would soon find out it might just be starting. In December 2009, Robert expressed his disapproval of Stephen bringing girls home. Before Stephen could deal with this problem, the situation took a more serious turn. Robert made inappropriate advances towards Stephen, even offering him free rent in exchange for agreeing to his terms. Robert also suggested that Stephen could get involved in an escort service. Though Stephen considered it, he ultimately declined. Despite this, Robert continued to make advances towards Stephen, who consistently turned him down. Although Stephen was disgusted by Robert's behavior, he still lived in Robert's house, as he was struggling financially. To ensure his safety, Stephen borrowed a 9mm Ruger from his cousin, keeping it under his pillow. As 2007 came to a close, Stephen and his girlfriend Velma began receiving threatening phone calls from an anonymous voice. The caller warned Stephen to stop whatever activities he was involved in, even suggesting that he should have a gun. But something strange had happened. Earlier that same day, Stephen's gun had gone missing. It was later revealed that Robert had confiscated it. The situation escalated further when Velma received a bizarre call in which the caller confessed to slashing her tires and then, bizarrely, apologized. Not long after, Stephen discovered all 4 of his tires had been slashed. Robert, however, took advantage of the situation, offering Stephen his own car until his was fixed. The strange behavior didn't stop there. In the course of the investigation, police discovered Robert had 3 phones: a house phone, a cell phone, and a third, which he called his fun phone. It was this fun phone that matched the number from the calls Velma and Stephen had received. Even more chilling, the phone's location was consistent with where Stephen's tires had been slashed. The prosecution would later argue that Robert had become obsessed with Stephen, determined to pursue a relationship with him, no matter the cost. In their eyes, Robert's jealousy over Latrice became the tipping point. They believed he followed her after she left his house on the night of January 29, 2008, and in a fit of rage, killed her to eliminate what he saw as an obstacle to his perceived relationship with Stephen. The prosecution suggested that Robert Reeves had used Latrice's phone to make calls after her murder, a critical piece of evidence that pointed to his involvement. Alongside this, police discovered a partially melted trash can at Reeves' house, containing accelerant and fabric, like an attempt to burn evidence from the crime. This discovery painted a disturbing picture of the dual life Robert led. By day, he was a bishop. By night, a predator. The evidence made it clear Robert had a strong motive for the crime. However, the defense put forth a different narrative. They argued that Robert's disability, his left arm, was paralyzed from a previous mugging and stabbing in New York, which made it impossible to have carried out the brutal stabbing. They suggested that due to his limited mobility, Robert could not have stabbed Latrice multiple times. The defense also pointed to Stephen, claiming he had a more plausible motive. They speculated that Stephen, possibly fearing an unwanted pregnancy, had something to hide, and even suggested his extensive knife collection, one that was never tested for blood or DNA, could point to his involvement. As the trial neared its conclusion, Robert's attorneys questioned whether proper procedures had been followed in collecting and testing the evidence, hoping to cast doubt on the case. Despite their efforts, the physical evidence presented by the prosecution was too compelling to ignore. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Robert Reeves was found guilty of first-degree murder. On October 9, 2009, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Today, he remains incarcerated at the Piquatonk Correctional Institution in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, serving the sentence for a crime that shocked and devastated everyone involved. While the family was relieved that the killer had been caught, the pain of losing Latrice never fully eased. The sense of justice served could not undo the deep scars left by the tragic loss of a beloved family member. The grief was overwhelming, especially for those who had known and loved her the most. This case serves as a stark reminder of the potential dangers of possessiveness and the importance of addressing unhealthy relationships and behaviors before they escalate. What do you think about it? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.